Hello and welcome once again to the Rhythm Changes podcast. I am your host, Chris Fraser. This, I suppose, is our holiday edition of the podcast, as it will be the last one before the new year. My two guests in this episode are Thomas Houlden and Chelsea McBride, who are going to be hosting their third, quote, mostly annual holiday big band spectacular this Saturday, the 21st, at Brentwood Presbyterian Church in Burnaby at 7 p.m. The link to the event will be in the description. Full disclosure, I have, in fact, been hired to play guitar in this show. So is there a bit of shameless bias in this guest booking? Absolutely. But you know what? It's my show, Will, and I can be as biased as I please. That being said, that doesn't mean this wasn't a fun and goofy romp of a holiday episode. I think you're going to like it. I've got a few other things I want to cover after, so stick around for the outro. Otherwise, please enjoy our holiday conversation. My guests today are both wonderful instrumentalists, teachers, and arrangers who will be hosting their third holiday concert in a row together that I'm aware of. Maybe there have been more?
Well, there was that year we got snowed out. So technically...
Oh,
yeah.
The reason it's mostly annual is because we try and do it every annual, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just get your names out. It's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast Thomas Houlden and Chelsea McBride. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you.
We're at Thomas and Christie's suite in East Vancouver, just off Fraser Street. Well, I guess it's pretty clear to me that this is actually Razor and Snips's place.
Yeah. They're here. They may have something to say later, but I doubt it.
This is probably like the most cat person podcast episode that we've had yet.
Possibly, yes.
This is true. We have a cumulative 4 cats for 3 people.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yep.
Because and this is my second 3-person episode. And when we had Carson and David, Carson is a cat person, but David is decidedly a dog person. So,
but David's got a cat person vibe.
He does. That's true.
Yeah.
I wonder why. Well, because have you met Juno, his dog? His beautiful dog,
I have
Juno?
seen pictures of Juno. I think he got Juno after he moved to Calgary, so...
No, he had Juno before then.
Did he?
Yeah,
okay.
when they lived in North Vancouver.
I've
Juno's a beautiful dog, but he is he's like the kind of dog that's very friendly and chill, but also very anxious. He's not there's nothing startling or scary about him as a dog, but he is constantly on edge, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a Chihuahua.
Yeah, he's like a big giant Chihuahua.
This was a very important detail that you left out of that story, both of you.
No, he's not a Chihuahua. He's not a Chihuahua. That's what I'm saying.
It's a mutt. It's a mid-sized mutt.
No, he's he's like a normal-sized dog.
Yeah.
Chihuahuas are normal-sized dogs too. They're just Chihuahuas.
They're normal for Chihuahua size.
I love the start to this podcast already.
The mic is getting a headbutt. I need you to know the cats are announcing themselves.
This is like I said, we're in their house, so if they want to butt in, they may. That's fine. Chelsea, when did you get in?
36 hours ago.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome back.
It is that is actually longer than my longest travel delay, which is good. I have been flying across the continent for almost 15 years now, since I moved to school for my undergrad. Yeah. And my record travel delays in trying to get back to Vancouver, usually for a gig, are 14 hours because of a snowstorm.
Yep.
That was leaving Vancouver. Delayed 14 hours leaving Vancouver for a snowstorm, and then delayed at Newark 27 hours.
Ugh.
Coming back for a gig that I actually missed.
Yeah.
But I got to see my folks, so it was okay.
I don't know if I'm recalling correctly, but I'm pretty sure we were supposed to play a gig together.
And John Nicholson did it.
Yeah. At Second Floor.
That was the 27-hour delay.
Yeah. And you asked me to play it, and then you weren't there.
I know. Not the first time I have brought great people together in my absence. I am really...
it doesn't take much to get me and John together on a gig.
That's true.
But
we love John on this
oh
podcast.
yeah, yeah. I guess we got to get John on the podcast. He's been on with Will, I believe.
Yeah.
So I'm giving a little bit of time before I revisit most of the Will guests, but I have to. Like I have to interview Gordy.
Oh yeah.
Like I must.
Gordo needs to be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gordy has a voice.
Yeah.
And it needs to be heard. I don't know if you know Gordy.
I don't actually, but the thing I love about being a small, if tangential part of this community is learning about all of the personalities contained within it. Because Vancouver's cool for that. It's a big enough scene that like that was the cat.
Sorry. Snips just
jumped off a shelf.
Vaulted.
Belly flopped onto the table that we're all sitting at.
What I was going to say is Vancouver is a great scene for being large enough to have a diversity of personalities, opinions, voices, but small enough that you kind of still know everybody.
Yeah.
Which is why our holiday show is the best Christmas party that you aren't related to anybody at.
Right, yeah.
Because it's a cool enough community that there are multiple Christmas events,
yes,
holiday events,
yes,
and so there's plenty of stuff to go to, and we all know each other, and none of us are family, so we have none of your family baggage.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe you don't. I don't know.
My whole family is going to be there. My whole family,
nice.
Yeah, they have
everybody.
Well, all my immediate family is going to be there.
We're bringing the Commonwealth of Chilliwack is making.
Yes.
they're coming out to North Burnaby. I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, my mom's in Salmon Arm these days, and my sister is from New Zealand, or in New Zealand. So it's a bit of a trip for a few of them.
So let's get the full plug out of the way.
Yes.
The reason we are talking today.
Well, I wanted to talk to you guys anyway, but but it is one of the main reasons because I do want to get this podcast out before the show actually happens. But what the official name of the show is?
Chelsea and Thomas's mostly annual holiday big band spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's if it doesn't get snowed out.
That's if it doesn't get snowed out. And then we're back. No, we're still going to be it will be biannual in that case. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So wait, no, this is only the second then.
It's the third.
The third.
But not technically in a row.
Yes, because we got snowed out in 2022.
Right. So the first one ever was 2021.
Yes.
Which is yes and no. The first one here was in 2021. I have been doing holiday shows since like 2012.
Okay.
This is the most wonderful time of year.
Right.
It is my favorite time of year. My birthday comes up in January, so this is always like a big preamble, like a month-long preamble to my birthday.
Right. Everyone needs one of those.
Yeah. It's very important.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just like once I realized I could book my own gigs and do whatever I wanted, like fully realized the privileges of being a grown up. I was like, why not have a holiday show? Why not celebrate with people that I was going to say actually want to be around, and then I realized, no, I do actually like spending time with my family, so it's not that. But like people that I'm not related to that I also want to spend time around.
Yeah. It is like I do know what you're talking about with like the familial vibe. Like Vancouver is like a big scene. It's a very big, small scene, I would say.
Yes.
Because it doesn't feel like, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't feel quite as maybe cliquey is the wrong word, but as other large scenes that I've seen, like everyone knows each other in this scene, and everyone sort of has like, there is kind of like a almost like familial like pecking order in the scene. And so
are you allowed to say that on the air?
Oh yeah, this is my show.
You can edit it out if you want.
This is my show. I don't know where I stand in the pecking order. I'm just saying that there's
we all have favorite uncles.
I mean,
you
never
Someone
know where
sitting at the head of the table.
You never know where you stand in the pecking order, but everyone else knows where you stand in the pecking order.
Yeah.
And you just don't ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I'd ever want to know. You know what? Like I know I'm somebody's least favorite friend, and I don't want to know who that is.
Right. Yeah. So you get the best version of the scene where you come back for the holidays, you do your show, everyone comes, and you have a great time, and then you get to.
I'm the fun aunt.
Yeah.
This is like, or the fun cousin. This is like I realize like I'm a childless woman in my early 30s. I'm basically destined for this.
Right.
But I'm really trying to embody it in all aspects of my life, where I can just be the fun aunt and come in with like, here's stories of what it's like in the exotic country of America.
Yeah.
And then I leave.
Yeah.
We did not get the full plug out. The show is Saturday, December 21st.
Yep. Yes.
Doors at 6:30.
Yes.
Music at 7.
Okay.
One set of Thomas, one set of me.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about set number 1. Thomas.
Hello.
This is an 11-tet, correct?
It's an 11-tet. Yep.
That's a 3-piece rhythm section.
Yep.
Plus, I can't do math. Whatever the rest.
8 horns. So this is a band where I like to like wave my arms a bit.
Yeah.
So I've got piano, bass, drums, 2 trumpets, 2 trombones, and 4 saxophones.
Right. Are you playing any of the trumpets or trombones?
No. Like I said, I don't really play in this band. I'll take a solo every once in a while. Mm-hmm. Christmas is where I will write charts for myself to solo on. So I make sure one of those is every year. I actually think back to the first concert I put on with this, and Fred Stride showed up, and he's like, you know what? You got to like play with the band so that people don't forget you're a player.
That's good advice, I think.
Yeah. Always a struggle, too. Like, this is something that's come up recently in my conversations with other writers. Shameless self-promotion. I do a lot of work for a website called jazzcomposerspresent.com.
Cool.
Lots of listening sessions and master classes with great jazz composers
awesome.
all across the world, which is awesome. But we always talk about that. And being in a community of jazz composers at school, like the balance between writing and playing and making sure people don't forget that you're both and not one or the other.
What do you think it is about like the I guess the industry that that does such a good job at like trying to separate those two things?
I don't think it's an industry thing. I think it's just that like I am a firm believer that people contain multitudes and that we're also really bad at acknowledging that other people contain multitudes. And so I feel like it's just easier. Like, because, I can sit here, like, every time I'm like, okay, what do I say in, like a Blue Sky bio or something? It's like, what are the things that people need to know about me? It's like, well, actually, there's a lot of things. Because, like, music is a part of it, but I do so many other things in my life that are cool. And I want it to be just as normal that I'm here talking about this exciting music thing as I am talking about the fact that I just had the best coffee of my life, or I'm a runner and I'm training for a marathon, and like all these things are so important. And so I think in the music industry, I think what we tend to do is we tend to think of someone as like, oh, this is their thing that they do.
Yeah.
But I don't know a single musician who's making it doing one thing.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Look at us.
Look at me.
Yeah.
Here
podcast
I am.
Host.
Hello.
Guitarist.
Yeah.
Community icon.
Oh, sure. I'll take it. Merry Christmas.
Well, and it's also getting into like that multi-instrumentalist thing. Like if we were talking about David Lavoie earlier, and I still
every year he has a new instrument that he's good at.
And like I always knew him as a great trumpet player, and I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that he seems to be playing a lot more guitar these days.
Oh, he's moved past guitar. He's playing bass now.
Well, there we go. I'm behind on the times in David's life.
Yeah, but he's playing bass now.
But I'll always think of, it's like, oh yeah, David the trumpet player, but I'm sure that's not how he described himself now.
No, that wouldn't really make sense.
No,
because he's like it's not just that like he's dabbling, like I think he's like put himself into a situation where he's in Calgary, so the scene there isn't as deep. Yeah. And so he has sort of the opportunity to fill all these different spaces.
And that's great.
Which is really smart for a guy like him, because like I think all he wants to do is whatever
he wants to do.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic, and I think we can all learn from that.
I know. Yeah. I mean, like I don't know if I could make the move like that, but I mean, it is inspiring to see someone like him just sort of like not care about like how he's I guess like having the identity of being a good trumpet player.
Yeah.
Even though like that is a big part of his identity, he doesn't have like the insecurity of being like, oh, well, if I start playing this other instrument, the people aren't going to take me seriously as a trumpet player anymore. It's just people are just impressed by everything.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And so I think that probably goes along with the composer thing, where it's just like, oh, well, if I play, then people are just going to think that I'm being indulgent or something. Like,
I mean, it for me, when I write myself into playing in my own bands, it's always indulgent. But I have made myself not essential to any of my bands, which is sort of the point. Like, I conduct or I play a little. Yeah. And I write all the music. So I guess there wouldn't be a band without the music. But in terms of like the actual functional playing role that I have, it's very limited. And so whenever I am writing myself a solo or writing myself a feature, it's like, nah, I want to do this because I want to do this.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important. And so I get to pick the best stuff.
Yeah.
Because like, why not?
Yeah.
I think in my case, like, I don't play with the band specifically because I don't want to be indulgent. Like, for me, I'm in front of the band. Like, the most prominent figure in the band is the back of my head. I mean, they don't always need me to conduct, but I like settling into the conductor role. But the indulgence for me is, well, it's my name on the top corner of all those pages. I do all the writing. I do all the arranging. Yeah. I'm at a point in my catalog where it's not even really arrangements anymore. Most of the music in my 11 Tets book is just me, all my stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Like your original music.
Original music. Except for the Christmas stuff, which is none of my original music.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the same, like, I have a couple arrangements in my big band book, and they're always fun, but composer first. Composer always. Yeah.
But you're arranging your compositions, aren't you? Like,
yeah.
But do you come up with a tune and then arrange it, or are you
often? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I find it harder to go the other way.
Yeah.
Because I do come from like that arranging aspect and that arranging history. I don't actually have like formal composition training. Like, I've done lots of composition, but I've never like dug into like true counterpoint studies or compositions. Like, I come from a very, jazz standard compositional approach.
Sure.
And some of this stuff trends a little more modern, but for the most part, it's I do a lot of straight ahead stuff, and there are tropes and there's things that we include in there. I don't think I push any huge boundaries in terms of my compositions. But when you say the composition / arrangement thing, I think this is a conversation that I saw John Corstad have on Facebook recently, within the last year or so. And it's like, well, where... And he like posted an open question to people, and it's like, where do you draw the line between, are you a composer or arranger? And if you're arranging your own stuff, do you say composed and arranged by, or do you say composed by? I don't know.
Was Tommy Wiseau the writer or director or star of The Room?
Exactly.
All of it. He was the writer, he was the director, he was the star.
But I think he just wanted to get paid like 8 times.
And good for him. He deserves it.
Yeah.
Right?
Debatable.
And so I don't see why you can't... I mean, you even admit that you come up with a tune and then arrange it. So why couldn't you say that you're the composer and the arranger?
Well, I do say I'm composer and arranger, but I don't put on the top corner of my page, composed by Thomas Houlden, arranged by Thomas Houlden. It just says...
because you're reminding yourself too much of Tommy Wiseau from the beginning of The Room.
I mean, we share a name, so like...
That's true.
And I was going to say, in this industry, you don't get paid twice for that when it's your own band.
Fair
right?
enough. Yeah,
So,
that's also true.
Which I think is the bigger thing for me. I'm like, I don't feel a need to sort of hammer into the musicians that I am writing all the music, because they know they're the people I'm like. Mm-hmm. I've always thought of myself as more an industry person than a famous person, like a public person, and so it's like, the people I'm trying to impress are probably in the band. The people whose opinions I'm like really deeply existentially concerned about are like my peers.
Yeah.
The audience can think whatever they want. Some of them like it, and that's the point.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not gonna have my career self-esteem riding on audience expectations, because I'd never make it if that were the case.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, totally. like I think any time that you're actually like any part of your self-reflection is including what an audience or even like fans may think. If you're including that in your self-reflection, I think that's you're sort of like destined to to kind of like turn it to something that you don't want to be.
Yeah, because I think there's a really important consideration when you think of like how is the audience going to experience this piece of music. Like I think that's an important part of understanding the gig you're writing for. But I think if you're trying to be like, well, my metric for how good of a musician I am is how many tickets I sold this year, how many streams I had. Spotify Wrapped just happened and everyone's posting their stuff and I'm trying to ignore it because I hate all that. But like I think it's an important consideration for me. Like art exists with consumers, with participants, with listeners, with all of that in mind. We don't have what we do without an audience in some ways, but in other ways, it really is just for us and our own creative pursuits and our own self-actualization. And I think that's got to be the driving force. So I'm really loath. It's like I'm only an artist for me, and I'm like, that's too self-absorbed. I don't care.
Right.
Like, I mean, I am only an artist for me. This is the thing I'm driven to do, but I exist to be in community with other people. And that means sharing holiday music and putting my compositions out there. And that does mean a little bit of engaging with your audience, but it doesn't have to be the thing your self-worth rides on. It's just a part of the job.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, obviously you want, I guess like you want to be likable. Right, and so like you would want to
be like,
well, I guess what I'm getting at is that like you would like to be able to present music and it be enjoyed by a generic audience member.
Chris, we're jazz musicians.
Yeah.
That generic audience, that's the thing. Like in jazz,
like a human, just like writing music for a human.
Yeah,
I think. I was going to say like, well, jazz musicians, it's like what 2 to 7% of the general listening population. But at the same time, I think good music has no genre limitation. So like, I know plenty of people who don't like jazz who like my stuff.
Right.
And there's plenty of jazz people who hate everything I put out, and that's fair too.
Yeah.
Like this sort of brings me back to like, well, people contain multitudes. We're not super easy to box in. And this is one of the things I love about doing the holiday show, because it's like the one time of year where I actually do kind of care about the audience. Yeah. But it's from this sense of like community building. Yeah. And like, this is a festive time of year. A lot of us are celebrating different things. I come at it from the very Christmas capitalist. Like I buy presents and I eat food. Like I am totally down the rabbit hole for the holiday season. But for me, it's quality time with friends and family. It's good music. It's usually when I go through everything I've listened to over the year and decide what I liked and what I didn't. I recap, I update my resume, like all these little things. It's like, that's that part of the end of the year, that sort of, crossing the last few T's, dotting the last few I's, getting some time off. Like I want other people to share in the joy that all that stuff brings to me.
Sure. So you really put like an exclamation point on the year.
Yeah.
Right. Because I guess you come back, right? You come back to see family.
I think a lot of people, I will say like a lot of people have really complicated relationships with their family, and like I've been living in the States for a couple of years now, and like politically down there it's so contentious that like people are disowning relatives left and right.
Yeah.
I would be
well, you're
lying.
going to school in Florida too.
I'm going to school in Florida. It's weird, man. I've only been there for a few months, so I'm going to reserve any really strong opinions. Okay. But the culture shock is real.
Right.
I think more to the point though, like I have a really loving, supportive family.
Great.
Who I don't agree with everything, or agree on everything with is the correct order of those words. And I'm still here. I still make a point of coming back and saying like, no, the family thing's important to me and it's big and I have it and I want to value that in the ways that I can. So yeah, I'm back in Vancouver like 2 to 4 times a year at this point. And it's as much for me as for them. I think, because I mean, you know, like my parents are empty nesters. Their kids are in their 30s. Like, we don't need to be around. We can go live our lives and whatever. But it's important to me to keep those connections up. And, you know, we only have so much time with each other.
Will they be at the show?
My dad may not be. My mom will be.
Okay.
My dad, however, did once fly out to Toronto for a holiday show.
Whoa.
So I think this actually brings the family tally even.
Right. Okay. Right. He's winning.
Yeah, he was one ahead for a little
Yeah.
while because he flew out literally for the day to see us in,
Your mom's
in
catching
Toronto. Yeah.
Well, great. I'm excited for the rivalry to continue over the years.
But like the friendly rival.
Yeah.
Like we see who's there more and then we all go home and eat turkey together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah.
That's the kind of family celebration I want at my Christmas time.
Yeah, I'm excited for this show to turn into like a giant meal at the end of it eventually.
Well, we do that at the rehearsal.
At the rehearsal.
That's true. Actually, you're right.
So like it's hard to get people together at this time of year, and
Yeah.
like at this point, most of the musicians have played it a few times, so we only do one rehearsal for this. So we'll do like a big one. The 11tet comes in for the rehearsal. We go through the music pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Spot check some stuff, and then we take a break and we feed all the musicians. We make sure that it's catered and everyone's fed and dietary restrictions, whatever. I mean, if we're getting into like the reason I run a band is because there are so many musicians in town that I love working with. And I made the stupid decision of the stupid and smart decision of running an 11-piece band. My biggest frustration with an 11-piece band is there's not enough space in the book for everyone that I want to work with.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one of the nice things about this year, because I contract all the musicians like, oh yeah, I'm going to call so-and-so, and I'm going to call them, and I'm going to call them, because now I have more space to fit these people on stage.
Right.
Which I don't normally.
Great.
Not for lack of, I don't like them or they don't make the cut. It's just like, well, I have a regular roster now, and I'm happy to swap people in. But
with the big band,
the big band, it's like, oh yeah, let's call them.
Yeah.
And have them involved. And, you know, I worked my way through university as a cook. So like having these big meals and these big like food gatherings, that's a big thing for me. It's like,
I mean, food at a rehearsal is always like a good indication of vibes.
Yeah.
Right?
You only feed people you like.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like,
depends what you're feeding them.
I mean, you know, like it's also just kind of like, I feel like if I'm going into a rehearsal where there's food, it means that like I'm playing with someone who's like, it's usually someone who's like pretty experienced running a rehearsal. And especially if you're doing like a long rehearsal with two big, like large ensembles, it's going to take a long time. We probably can only do it once.
Yep.
If we can even get everyone there. So you may as well like literally and figuratively make a meal out of it.
Yeah. So we rehearse with the 11tet. Everyone shows up for the meal, or everyone who can make it shows up for the meal portion. We take like half hour to an hour break, have some good food, sit around and chat, and then we're all back on stage, full big band for Chelsea's set.
Full big band for mine, and then you know at the end we sort of pack up / parcel out /
finish
up the rest of the food.
Yeah.
I will state my bias and say that I am going to be in the big band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're very excited.
Which is very fun. I love to play in the big band. I love to be the guitar player in a big band.
It's a weird gig, right? Like not to turn this on its head a little bit, but I know when I'm writing guitar parts, I'm always thinking about that. Like I want to give them melodies so they feel appreciated, and also because it's just good orchestration. Yep. But I want to give them chord changes so that they can do their comping thing and have fun. And I try and give everybody little moments where they sneak out of the texture, they do something cool.
Yeah.
But like you can speak to this more. Being a guitarist in a big band is a really weird role.
Weird? I don't know about weird. I think, well, it's something you got to get used to. It's something, but it's to me, I just know that I'm fulfilling a role, and whatever is on the page is my role, and I just stick to that as best as I can, because sometimes I will stray away from my role.
That's very irresponsible.
That's very guitarist.
Yeah. But I try to stay faithful to the role. I really do. You have to believe me. I have it on record.
Yeah. Okay.
You're going to be running the rehearsal.
No.
Chelsea, you're like, he's straying away from the role, and I'm trying to stay on the path. I really am.
This is the whole thing about working with jazz musicians.
Yeah.
It's like you give us like a little room to improvise, and like they're off to the races, man.
Yeah.
Like
I don't know. I feel like I've had a lot of fun and I've played in a lot of big bands actually, but all of them have been like I was in Leo Bay's big band back in the day. I'm playing in Dean's big band lately, which is awesome. Dean Thiessen.
Yep. Stranger Friends.
friend of the channel.
Yeah.
Friend of the show. Friend of the show. I gotta get Dean on. I gotta get Dean on the show.
You gotta get Dean on.
That'd be a great episode.
Oh, he's a good conversation all the time.
Oh yeah, we have a lot we could talk about. And so like a lot of it is like like original compositions and stuff, and especially someone like Dean. Like Dean always thinks about like how they're gonna feature somebody in a tune, and like I've described his writing as kind of like modular, where he's just like, okay, we'll do this, and then I'll just fit Thad Bailey Maya in this part,
Yeah,
and then Thad will do his thing, and like he's like just sort of like a usable module where it's just like there will be a really cool modern sounding trumpet solo here.
Yeah.
It's knowing your people too,
Yeah.
right? Like it's that. I mean, this goes all the way back to Ellington, but that idea of like, I'm gonna write for the people that I have to show them off their best capacity. Everything that is currently on my desk writing wise right now, which is thankfully not a ton of stuff, but everything that's on my desk right now is that. I have this person is my soloist, is my featured soloist, or this ensemble is my feature, or, you know, I was showing you my studio orchestra piece. The next thing on my desk is a big band arrangement. Concert is tribute to Roy Haynes. So drums.
Yeah.
Great drummer in the band. It's a drum feature now.
Great.
What do we do with that?
Yeah.
Well, I like that you mentioned the Ellington thing where he wouldn't write trumpet 1, trumpet 2, trumpet 3. He'd be like, this is Cat Anderson, this is Clark Terry, this is so-and-so in the band. And that's one of the nice things about having like a more regular roster these days with the 11 Ted is like, oh, I know exactly who's playing this. I know their strengths, or I want to highlight something I really appreciate about their playing. Getting into the charts, there's one that I'm recycling this year. It's A Child is Born, Thad Jones, which I arranged for the Snowed Out Christmas concert we played last year, but it's one of those songs that is both a jazz standard and has been co-opted by Christmas. So it's on the Christmas chart. So when I wrote that chart, I'm like, I'm going to feature Cam Henderson on this. And Cam Henderson's fantastic trombone player.
Yeah.
And when I wrote the melody, I'm like, I'm going to do some like screaming high but sensitive melody stuff, because I know Cam can do that.
Yeah,
it's like Cam, and so he's like way up in the stratosphere, like doubling trumpet 2, which is going to be Ben Frost this year. Like the chart was originally arranged for Cam Henderson and Heather Anderson, which I had to think about how to say that because I'm like,
too many similar.
Cam Henderson, Heather Anderson, but Ben crushes that chart. And when I asked him to play it this year, he's like, "Are we playing A Child is Born?" Because I live for that shit.
Yeah.
So. Really important that a lot of people don't actually know about this show, so I'm glad we get a chance to talk about it, which is every year we start the planning for this. Our birthdays are very close. We start the planning for this in January.
Right, yeah.
That doesn't mean we start the writing. As of this recording, I still have an entire chart to finish for the rehearsals. So.
Yeah, and I was done early.
Don't give away the game, man.
Yeah, I was done early this year because there was another holiday concert in November, and I double dipped. But it is an annual tradition that, like, we
fight over charts.
We fight over charts. We try and do new stuff every year, although I have significantly slacked on my end of the bargain there.
I've had 4 new ones every year.
Yeah,
come on.
And you write a bunch of new stuff, and we go back and forth. Okay, who's getting featured on this one? I usually get to pick what I get featured on. If I'm like, I want to write a new tune, then I always have to run it by you because it's like, do you want to do that? What's a good way to, what's our silly chart of the set? What's our serious chart of the set? What's a tune we haven't done yet that we could do? Like the repertoire collaboration, like the getting the date and making sure we're doing this again is January. The like band and logistics is like the fall.
Yeah.
That whole middle time is like, what crazy nonsense are we getting up to this year?
I'm not going to give it away, but every year I do a full-on joke chart. And
Right.
I'm really excited for this year's joke chart.
Oh, man.
And
It's
Chelsea
the
knows
one
what
I
it is.
suggested, right?
No, I've been wanting to do this for at least a year.
Oh.
Oh, no,
Anyways,
it's that one. I
it's that
did
one,
suggest
yeah.
something that you're doing that I'm
No, the
also
one,
really excited
the
about.
one that you want is the one that I haven't written yet. I'm going to take that one seriously. The tune itself is a bit of a joke, but the joke chart this year is very meta. The first year was the 12/8 of Christmas.
Yeah.
Which is 12 days of Christmas and like 12/8 groove, bass solo and Barry solo, like on the melody.
Yeah. Right.
And like 12/8 time.
Yeah, okay.
And that was just a lot of fun.
last year.
Last year, it was a mashup of Tchaikovsky's March of the Toy Soldiers, da, 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 and then I did a mashup with Lizzo's Boys.
Okay.
You were there, you heard it. It was a lot of fun.
I
It was
think,
it was a goofy ass chart, and a lot of fun to play and put together.
I blocked it out, I guess.
Well, it's fun for us because it's this opportunity to just like creatively stretch. And,
Yeah.
and like
yeah.
I don't take myself seriously on the Christmas charts.
Hey, you can take comedy seriously.
Oh yeah, and so the chart turned out fun,
And
but
actually,
like
I think there's something very like impressive about making music funny.
yeah.
So
But around the time that I arranged that was when there were a lot of like allegations of sexual misconduct from Lizzo, so it was kind of problematic.
yeah.
So that chart has been kind of shelved for now until such time.
Lizzo is less problematic.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
we're just gonna wait for Lizzo
a fantastic
to
icon,
change.
but
Hopefully
unfortunately,
Lizzo changes this year.
yeah, I don't
For
think
the
I've
better.
like heard Lizzo on the radio in like a year. So
That's true. Actually.
yeah.
They just sort of.
I saw her pop up on Blue Sky recently because I spend too much time on Blue Sky now. That's
Oh,
like
yeah.
my new social media.
Same.
Yeah, it's not good. Don't recommend. But
so that
she
was-
popped up on there.
That was the joke charts. And another one that got retired for this year was the Chipmunk Christmas song. And that used to be Chelsea's big feature, where scripted into the arrangement is a fight on stage a la the Chipmunks.
Right.
And broken up a la John going, Alvin! So it was,
I feel like what was the uncle's name in Alvin
or
and
like
the
their
Chipmunks?
I think it's John.
It is John.
Yeah, John Chipmunk.
You give more John vibe.
Yeah, and I break up the fight.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
on
Oh, I thought you were
stage.
saying John like John
So
Nicholson.
it's Chelsea and Trombone 2 who
Was Casey.
is usually Casey.
Is
yeah, on
usually
those gigs.
Casey. Yeah.
And it's scripted that they improvise an argument on stage that I have
Right.
to break up by yelling at them.
Yeah.
And then we go into this like Thad Jones waltz. Or, da, 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 dee, da, 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 dee, da, da, dee, da, da, da.
Yeah.
Fun chart. But that one shelved this year.
Yeah.
But this year's joke is
To-
it's a good one. It's a good one. You won't. Yeah. I don't want to give away more than that.
Man,
You know,
if
if
that
you wanna
doesn't
hear
coax
it-
you into coming to the show, I don't know what will. There's gonna be a song. It's gonna be so
I think
funny.
the best part about the joke
Yeah.
is that I don't get to see the payoff of the joke. I'll leave it there. I won't get to see the punchline. But I laugh every time I imagine the punchline happening in my head.
But you are gonna be around for the second set, right?
Oh, the punchline is not in the second set. The punchline
I know,
is,
but you're not like leaving
Why?
Well, he has to
because
sing
you said
the
you won't be
show.
able to see it. I just want to make sure you're still gonna
The
be
punchline
there.
happens when people go home. That's
Wow,
that's all I'm
okay,
gonna
you're
say.
right about meta. I really can't figure it out. All right,
I'll share the joke with you after the
I
podcast.
can't. No, I need to experience it like everyone else.
All right, that's fine.
It might be the best way to experience it.
Yeah, I'm going to be in the audience anyway for that
Yep.
for that portion of the show.
But yeah, getting back into the repertoire thing, like it's really important that we collaborate on who's doing what song.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many like stinker Christmas tunes out there, and
Oh,
even
yeah.
Chelsea and I like disagree on what
Yeah.
is and isn't a stinker.
I will say, because I've caught some heat from my friends, I have a particular love of Wham's Last Christmas. I unironically think it's pretty good, actually.
Happy Christmas.
There is an arrangement of it in my book that sticks around every year, and then every time I mention this tune to other people, they get mad at me.
if you're participating in
Whamageddon,
it does not count because it's a cover.
It's a cover.
So don't be afraid.
So you can listen to and enjoy this version.
I think there are always stinkers just because you've got to hate at least a couple Christmas tunes because there's so many. So
Chelsea,
you need to develop taste.
What's your
them.
stinker?
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you for running the podcast for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you next.
I don't know if I have a stinker. There's so many that I like.
Yeah, you've arranged so many though. Like have
Sleigh
there
Ride?
been any that were just like
Sleigh Ride is an interesting one because I like the tune, but I hear it way too much, and there's so many bad versions.
The lyrics are bad.
The lyrics are
Leroy
bad.
Anderson is a master, but the lyrics, whoever wrote the lyrics to Sleigh Ride really just like phoned it. I think at one time they rhymed snow with snow.
Yes.
Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, let's go for a ride in the snow. We're riding in a wonderland of snow. Isn't that the lyric?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's bullshit. I'm sorry, but like,
yeah.
Let's go snow. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of ones that like.
it's like Rain and Pain.
It's also
level.
like Jingle Bells doesn't usually make my list. Like it's
Jingle
just not
Bells is
interesting.
Yeah.
Jingle Bells is
But like Last Christmas, This Christmas.
Those are both in your set.
Those are both in my set.
Yeah.
I'm giving
Oh,
the
yeah.
set away.
No, but the question is specifically stinkers. So you're saying Sleigh Ride?
I'm saying Sleigh Ride.
Okay.
Yeah. I will say also though, I got into this discussion recently. There are specific versions of Christmas songs that are like.
Okay, you said Jingle Bells. Do you know the Barbra Streisand Jingle Bells?
Did you show me this?
Isn't
Someone
that the one
has
that's in
showed
like
me.
5?
Yeah.
For a bit.
Yeah,
It's
It's
a
the one
mess.
where the arranger just did like a whole bunch of cocaine. Like,
Yeah, you
clearly.
showed me this.
Yeah.
This was last
So,
Christmas.
Go check out the Barbra Streisand Jingle Bells if you haven't.
Okay.
It's very Broadway. It's very Barbra Streisand.
beautiful.
Chris, what's
Yeah,
your stinker?
Oh man, I mean, I think this is just my own like bias. Like, I'll say the one that I always defend, which is "Wonderful Christmas Time" by Paul McCartney. I think that's
Wow.
a good song.
I've had this like stinker conversation with a few people lately.
Yeah.
And most people say that one.
Yeah, no,
Interesting.
people hate it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I love it, partially because I'm.
You're just being.
contrarian at
I
heart.
was just gonna say contrarian. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But also, I'm like a Paul McCartney like loyalist.
Okay.
Right.
You stand for Paul McCartney.
I'm a yes. And because of
Bebop.
that, my stinker is Xmas War is Over by
Fair
John.
enough.
by John Lennon.
Wow.
I know that's
am
on the
offended
set.
by that. It's not in
not
the
this
set this
year.
year.
Okay.
I am offended by that choice. Actually, it was vetoed for something way more fun.
No.
So
That one is actually okay. If I had to choose another one, it's probably the Band-Aid one. Do they know it's Christmas time at all?
I think
Oh,
that's
yeah,
just
yeah.
offensive.
Yeah, maybe
I
that
don't
one's too
actually think
easy.
it's that bad. I think it's just like very
Yeah.
tone deaf.
Yeah. Do they know it's Christmas time? Yeah. What's the line that Bono sings? But tonight, just thank God it's them and not you.
Something like that.
Brutal.
Oh my god.
Like mean.
I will say
mean.
I know a lot of words to a lot of Christmas songs, and the fact that
Yeah.
I can't tell you what that lyric is means I've tuned it out.
I think
It's
that's also
not
just the
because I haven't heard
production.
it.
That's just like the 80s, like just live from the bottom of a cave kind of delay. And also the fact that it's like 800 people singing the same lyric all at once.
Yeah.
Like it's just it just sounds like a swarm of bees.
We were still on tape at that point, right? Like this
Oh,
was
yeah.
also
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're seeing how young we are because the advent of recording technology.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, there's a lot of great sounding recordings from then.
Oh yeah.
They had the technology. They had all
They
the
just chose
world's
not
greatest
to.
musical minds on the job.
Yeah.
I think that
For
definitely
that
is a,
They probably
particularly.
spent millions of dollars on the production of that one tune,
yeah. I think it's
and everyone hates it. Not everyone, but
A lot of people.
I think-
it's a pretty it's
I think
pretty
it's a
hated.
safe
But also
stinker
it's
pick.
one that's on the radio every year.
Yes.
Yep.
Like it's radio friendly somehow.
Well, I mean, a lot of this stuff is, and
Mm-hmm.
I always exhale a sigh of relief that like the good versions of the Christmas tunes are still the ones that are on the air.
Yeah.
But like as soon as All I Want for Christmas starts playing in a grocery store or
on November
a radio,
1st and
on November 1st, like that's when I start getting DMs from my friends being like, it's you've done this. And I'm like, I have been sitting in my air-conditioned Florida apartment doing absolutely nothing to bother anyone.
Yeah.
Except
And
maybe have a festive
all-
thought.
least of all wake up.
Well, you're living in the States. I feel like there is a little bit more of a buffer because Thanksgiving is such a big deal.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
I actually have a story on this because for those who follow me there and know this, for those of you who don't, now you know, I'm studying at the University of Miami at the Frost School of Music. It's a blast. We do a holiday concert every year.
Okay.
And I'm thrilled because finally a program that understands the most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah.
And in the band or affiliated with the concert, writing for the concert this year, we had my friend Izzy, who is like, Christmas starts November 1st. I will take no notes. It's my favorite time of year.
Right.
We have my friend Allie, who's like, my birthday is around Christmas. So I spend December reminding everyone it's my birthday.
Right.
And then I show up and I'm like, well, my birthday is the middle of January. So Christmas goes until the middle of January. Don't put your trees away. We're not done yet.
Yeah. You sound like my dad.
And like my birthday is also far enough from Christmas that there's like a buffer. You can like recover from Christmas and then get excited again. But the thing I love about that concert and the way it went this year, and you know, everyone talking about their different interpretations of the festive season, is that nowhere in there do we acknowledge Thanksgiving.
Right.
So what you have in the States actually is this abomination of like, I walked into a CVS at like the end of like before Halloween.
Yeah.
And so you have Halloween candy,
Yeah.
giant turkeys, and giant nutcrackers for sale at the same time. And this starts in like August. So like I walked into CVS in October, but this has been going since August 1st. Yeah. So
why is it always at pharmacies that remind you exactly what season it is, retail wise?
I mean, it's pharmacies and Target in the States.
Yeah, I always think like
But I'm in a pharmacy more than I'm in a Target.
I get sort of like struck with like the stench of the holiday season by Shoppers Drug Mart first more than anyone else, right? Because you walk through in the middle of August and they have like Halloween candy.
Yeah,
and it's just like, already, man. And then that happens again with Christmas. Yeah, it's always Shoppers Drug Mart. It's funny that you mentioned CVS.
Yeah, well,
it's the same when Easter rolls around and
Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
you got to look for the sale candy. That's the sale candy is what it's all about.
And it goes fast. You got to go like the next day.
I will say the sort of like blending of the holiday season, because like at least in Canada we have Thanksgiving and Christmas like a decent distance apart, and in the middle is like Remembrance Day. So you spend like the first 11 days of November walking around with your poppy, trying not to get stabbed and paying your respects and whatnot, and that's great. In the States,
the poppy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I realize now how that was a poorly constructed sentence.
It's a stabby season.
but for the poppy.
Ooh, from the poppy. Yeah.
No. But in the States, because there's sort of nothing in that September-October stretch.
Yeah.
Indigenous Peoples Day is only a holiday for some things and like not for school. And then you get Thanksgiving and Christmas back to back. And so from about the middle of November, people are just checked out. They're starting their travel. They're not doing anything. Try getting something done at the end of the semester. It does not happen. It is not good. And I mean, I like this from the philosophy of like no one in the States ever really rests. So, I mean, it's good that they're kind of phoning it in because like that's probably the most recovery time they'll get. But
well, yeah, I mean, like if there isn't a holiday season, there's like just like statistically, there's probably a presidential campaign happening in the States.
I will not get into it because this is not the venue, but U.S. politics does not sleep.
Yeah.
Just full stop. It does not sleep.
That's what I mean. It's just always happening. There's always something.
Yeah.
So you can, I don't know if there's candy for that.
No.
At CVS. There should be. There should just
They
be
have
like
President's Day
consolation
stuff.
candy.
I'm sure there's President's Day stuff.
No, you want festive and patriotic? You got to wait till 4th of July, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That said, they do not skimp out on 4th of July. I was near fireworks this year, which was nice. Like close enough to acknowledge they were happening and far enough to not partake at all, which is my favorite distance from fireworks to be.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. I think I had gelato and went to bed at like 10 p.m. It was good.
Whoa.
Very
God bless
festive.
America. When did you start going to Frost School?
I started in August, so I am brand new there.
Yeah, weren't you living in New York City, NYC before?
Depends on how closely you read my bio. So
Okay.
I lived in Toronto for a really long time,
Yes.
and then did a master's at William Patterson, which is technically in New Jersey, but is
Okay.
20 miles
There's
from
the
New York
bit.
City. That's the bit. So when you're on this side of the country, it's a rounding error.
York.
That's
She's from New Jersey.
I spent a lot of time in New York City. I had my first real
Yeah.
New York City gig, and then I left pretty much immediately.
right. Perfect.
And even that's a bit of a stretch, but I did my own music has been played in New York City clubs, which is pretty
There you
freaking
go.
cool. And then I did a summer program in Maine and traveled around. I've sort of been on the road for years at this point. And then landed in Miami in August to do my doctorate.
Are you
at
an
the
American
Frost School.
citizen?
No.
Oh,
I
spent a lot of time down there though. As a non-
student visas are not so hard to get
Okay.
when you're Canadian.
Cool.
But they do require like financial paperwork that is difficult to procure. As anyone who's studied in the States will tell you.
Yeah.
Frost is great, but it's one of those schools that has more difficult paperwork.
Huh. Okay.
So, because it's a big school.
Yeah.
That's just, it's a big school. It's a private university. The numbers are bigger.
Are you getting a degree at Frost?
Yes, I am studying jazz composition.
Is in a master's capacity?
Doctorate.
Doctorate.
The goal is Dr. McBride.
Yes. Dr. McBride. All right. Can't wait.
I know, me neither.
When's the coronation? Sorry, what's the date? That's not the word for becoming a doctor. I don't know.
If all goes to plan, I graduate in 2027,
Okay.
and hopefully there is still a United States of America at the time,
Yeah.
and a university.
It
of
might be a
Miami.
monarchy by then. Maybe there will be a coronation.
You know, I just want to graduate, man.
You don't have to get political here. Sorry.
Ooh.
No, it's a very like I think one of the things for me, we talked about this a little bit in planning the show to bring it all the way back actually, but like I want this concert to be like wholesome, happy, fun times.
Yeah.
There is so much crap going on around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't need to get into it. We need to have a nice
Yeah.
time with our people.
That's true. I think people are more willing to kind of like huddle together because of that. So you're kind of like you're taking advantage of the political.
It's like
climate.
sheltering from the storm.
Yeah.
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 No, you want to have a podcast where we talk about how weird things are politically. That's another day. This
I know,
is
yeah,
not
maybe
the
that's
day.
that's probably my next podcast.
The side project.
It's probably the podcast I start after Will fires me after today's podcast.
We're releasing it first, right?
Yeah, we will release it. We will plug the show, and
And then it'll immediately get taken down.
I will bring my resume to
Hi,
the
Lord
show.
William. Yeah.
What are so you're studying composition there? Who are you studying with?
Dr. Stephen Guerra, and every once in a while, a little bit with the one and only Maria Schneider, who is on faculty.
Wow. What's that been like?
Well, she
as a
hasn't
big
been
band
yet.
arrangement?
So
Okay,
normally
okay.
she shows up once a semester. And
Mhm.
of course I start in the semester where she doesn't show
Right.
up.
It's one of
So
those,
I am working diligently on a score behind the scenes that
Right.
she is about to absolutely tear apart.
Perfect.
I'm looking forward to it.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah, and I will say, when it comes to studying with women in composition, pretty much anywhere, it's a
Yeah.
very short list.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Also on my list was Eastman School of Music, which of course
Okay.
has Christine Jensen,
Yes,
noted
yeah.
Canadian,
Yeah.
noted British Columbian,
British Columbia.
and I did not get in there. So if you are holding out hope for a doctorate, don't worry, it's really hard to get into these places.
Yeah.
But you only need one,
Yeah.
and I cannot stress that enough. You really only need one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get honorary ones, and then
Yeah, you can
Those are
collect
the
later.
coronations.
yeah, you collect later.
Those are the
yeah.
coordinations.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of Maria Schneider, honorary doctorate at Eastman School of Music.
Oh,
So it
okay,
all
yeah,
does
there you
come
go.
full
Honorary.
circle.
Dr.
Right.
Maria Schneider.
Dr. Maria Schneider.
So you're still getting the connection to Eastman.
I have a lot of friends there.
Yeah.
I did the thing that I recommend people do, but that is financially difficult. Back when I had money, which is I went to my top couple choices of grad school. Grad school's like I will say, because I do a lot of work in these sort of, I mean, we both do, but I do a lot of work in these sort of educational mentorship capacities. And I did a lot of freelancing and professional work before I went back into academia. There are things about that route that are better and worse, but I think one of the really important things for me is like, I wanted to go back to academia. I wanted to stay in academia. And I did a lot of research before I made that choice.
Great.
The way things had lined up for me, I probably could have stayed freelancing indefinitely and been perfectly happy and had a lot more money.
Sure.
But it wasn't about the money for me. It was a lot more about, you know, what I could learn and how I could grow and that personal development thing. And this sort of takes us back to like, why are you an artist in the first place? I want to be better at what I do constantly.
Yeah.
And I want to be in situations where I'm learning and being challenged and getting comfortable.
Going to school to learn?
Going to school to learn.
What a novel idea.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it made a lot of sense for me. And it's also been really hard to do.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of family support that I've leaned on. I, you know, drained all of my savings. I went to every one of my top choices. I emailed every program head. I asked a million questions. I talked to current students.
Take notes.
Take notes. Interview everybody.
Yeah. Email the program heads. That's probably really good advice.
I give this advice to like lots of people because I did my master's at the University of Toronto, and every once in a while, like a colleague's like, "Oh, what'd you do in your master's? How'd you get in? What advice do you have?" And my advice is always, and well, I'll preface this by like, I did teachers college. I work with Vancouver School Board these days as my like money job.
Yep.
And so a lot of my colleagues from UBC are like, well, you know, I want that master's for the pay bump. Like, what do you recommend about master's program? The first thing is, well, number one, do something that you want to do.
Yeah.
If you're just doing it for the pay bump, you are going to hate the master's experience.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You want to do something that you are passionate about.
Yeah.
And it's a big reason why I did my master's before I did my teaching degree. But the same thing, it's like, get to know the faculty, take a lesson with them, email them, have a video call. Because once you get to that higher tier, it's also like a lot to do with who you are as a person. And the better idea that the adjudicators, that the teachers, the faculty, that they know about you as an individual, the more likely you are to be accepted into that.
Yeah, I will say one of the things, there's a couple things that you sort of touched on that are really important there. It is widely
you guys are
variable.
so good at being on podcasts. This is great.
It's wildly variable how much of their time before you apply professors will invest in you, because there's a certain amount of their job that is recruiting, but also you can only ask them to do so much for free, and they're all busy all the time. So with that in mind, one of the most valuable things that I found early in the grad school journey, both for master's and doctorate, was getting to talk to the students, because they have a lot more time and they'll tell you where all the skeletons are hidden.
Right.
And that's really important, because you do want to know which of the practice buildings smells like feet and where the good printer is.
Yeah.
The unique thing about being a composition student is you walk by the library and they're like, that's the printer where I cried while taping my charts, because we've all done it.
Yeah.
I've never cried while taping, but
Okay, what while writing?
I'm just going to leave the ellipses on that sentence.
So I mean, you know, there's only so much that you'll get out of the faculty directly, but reaching out, making that connection, putting your name in front of them is really important. Yeah. And then like you said, it's fit. It has nothing to do with whether you're good or not.
Yeah.
I love telling people the numbers. I got into every undergrad I applied to. I got into 60% of my master's applications.
Yeah.
2 of 7 for doctorate. I had never applied to 7 schools. It's so much money. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I think I had a couple
like
that were cheap.
$100 or more a pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, not all of them were, but like some are higher, some are less.
Yeah.
I think
I think 100 is probably a safe average for the application fee.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to remember that's local currency.
Yeah, local currency, U.S.
Local currency. Yeah. As soon as you start applying to American schools, that goes up to like 150 with the exchange.
Did you apply anywhere in any other continents?
I looked at it.
Yeah.
I almost the joke for a while, because Frost was not on my radar for masters at all. But Sydney Conservatory was in Australia.
Cool.
And so I called my parents and I was like, congratulations, everywhere I'm picking is a direct flight. Whether that was going to be 15 hours over an ocean in a hemisphere or the 4 hours from York University in Toronto.
Yeah.
semantics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing I am now salty about is that Miami is not a direct flight to Vancouver.
Really?
No, you have
I'm
to
a
fly
little
through.
surprised.
It's man, and I came
It's
back
a
to
long
Chicago.
flight.
Yeah.
It's a long flight. If
Yeah.
it was direct.
WestJet flies through Atlanta. Air Canada flies through Chicago.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
But if we're like on the topic of academia, like it's my 5/10 year plan to get a coronation myself.
Yeah.
And
My liege.
not yet, peasants. No, sorry. But like
Not
the
king
schools
yet,
I'm looking,
my liege. Together we can.
Yeah, I'm. But I'm
Needs your right hand.
Would watch this show.
just jazz dynasties.
Yeah. I'm Jazz Littlefinger.
But I'm almost exclusively looking like off continent, like
Yeah.
in Canada.
This is
like
news to me. That's cool.
I'm sure we've talked about this, but
Off-continent.
in Canada, like I'd love to go back to Toronto. Like I had a great time in the city. I still have a lot of close friends there.
It's a cool school, man. Like
yeah.
people who went to Cap, people from Vancouver, you just don't get it. Like, because like at Cap, it's like up on top of a hill,
It's
like 40 minutes
middle of
away
nowhere.
from anything. Like U of T is directly in the middle of the
Yeah,
city.
it's literally
Same with
next
McGill.
to one of the biggest transit stations in
Yeah.
Toronto. I had a great experience there. Worked really well with a lot of teachers that I'd love to work with again. Like Terry Permain especially. He is now retired, but like he and I chat every once in a while, once or twice a year. And like open invitation from him to be like, yeah, let's work together a bit when you get back in town. So U of T is lower down specifically because Terry's not there anymore. York, unfortunately, at the moment isn't offering coronation programs. That was my in from Noam Lemish, who's professor there right now. He's like, oh yeah, it'd be really cool, but not right now. But I'm looking at like the Sibelius Academy in Finland. I'm looking at Sydney Conservatory. I'm looking at University of Wellington, New Zealand.
yeah.
I was looking at University of Wellington too. Super
Really-
underrated.
Yeah,
Cool.
really cool programs. But yeah, that might be the next big one.
If you're looking for bang for your buck, don't go to the States.
Right.
I've been in the States for...
There are no American schools on my list at the
Yeah.
moment.
And mine was not entirely American. I did apply to McGill and I applied to York for my master's. But they didn't take me. The fit for me was in the States. And so I went where the fit was and the money was.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about where I applied and how I was going through that process is that it almost didn't matter where I ended up because the faculty were amazing everywhere and the process
Yeah.
was fairly similar. It came down to money.
Yeah.
And don't go where they don't pay you.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely that faculty piece as well. When people, like I teach high school and students are like, oh, where should I go for university? I'm like, if you're going to university for jazz, there are two things to keep in mind. One is do it in a major city. There are some fantastic programs out there. Like Winnipeg University of Manitoba has a fantastic jazz program, but you're in Winnipeg. Like the scene there is... There's some wonderful players, some wonderful writers, some wonderful groups playing, but it's tiny.
They don't have a train. They have a special lane for the bus.
Well, and
So-
Brandon is right there as well.
Brandon's right there,
And
really
even
good school,
smaller.
really good faculty, but like when you're going to school for jazz, such an important part of that education is the work. Like if you're not also working as a musician actively during undergrad, you're not getting the full experience.
Yeah, totally.
So number one info that I give is there are great programs in lots of places, but focus on the ones in city centers, major cities. And the second one is equally important. It's like, check out the faculty. Like, who do you want to work with? Do some research on them as a player, do some research on them as a person, and meet them before you apply to see if it'll be a good fit.
Yeah, and I like the advice that you gave about like talking to current students, like if you can, to know actually about what
always.
the program's like, because that reminded me of a story that I have applying to a school in the States. This was maybe like 6 years ago.
I remember this. I know what school you're talking about.
I applied to a school. I don't know if I think you're still in Toronto when this happened, but I went and I auditioned, and there was like a sort of like an open house thing on the same day where there would be a current student there, like fielding questions from people who were like trying to get in, and I wanted to apply to the school specifically because there is a legendary guitar player who was listed as being on faculty at the school, and I was like, I need to study with him if possible. And so I go to the school, I do the audition, audition goes just fine, and then I go to this open house meeting Q&A thing, and then somebody else asks about, hey, is Mr. Guitarist X at the school very often? And the guy's like, yeah, he's here like twice a semester for like a week at a time, maybe. And so like he does like a little bit of a, but like that's if he's in town. Like usually he's on tour somewhere, so like he might not be able to come. And it's like,
Yeah.
And like, I don't know what you're, but for me, I was like, oh, I thought like he was like, I would be able to study with him normally. I thought, I didn't know it would end up being like a masterclass situation, like maybe once a year. And I wouldn't have realized that if it wasn't for someone actually filling me in, because they don't make that clear on the website.
It's intentional.
Yeah, that's on purpose.
Yeah. And well, I mean, they also didn't give me any money to go there, so it didn't work out.
Yeah, my doctoral decision came down to money. I got 2 offers of admission. Only one of them came with a paycheck.
Right. Yeah, and well, I mean, I wonder about if that's good that that's how you made that decision, but it also must be a thrill that you will be able to study with Maria Schneider.
It was really funny talking
If she's
to
there
people
like
about
once
that.
a year.
Yeah, once a semester.
Yeah. Not. I mean, like you're saying, like it came down to money either way, and you're getting the money. I probably would have gone there if they had paid me, but like.
We can always sort of if and but our way through these.
Yeah.
I think for me, like a lot of it since I left Canada has been about chasing the momentum.
Yeah.
And like it's a lot of leaps of faith that hopefully will pay off at some point. But for me, in sort of deciding the direction of my career and then particularly deciding where to go in this sort of academia thing, it's been like, what in my life makes the most sense right now? And at the time I was making this decision, going back to school and not getting paid or like that was just not an option.
Yeah.
And so there had to be some financial incentive to go wherever I was going to go.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be school. And I think that's another thing that is really important to keep in mind, because I know you were talking about doctorates and like
Coronations.
Yeah, coronations.
5-10 year plans. And for me, the 5-10 year plan has always kind of involved that, kind of listening, putting your ear to the wind and figuring out what's the next most logical move for me to do. And then what gets supported. I apply for grants all the time.
Yeah.
I am constantly trying to make records and go on tour and do residencies. If I can find a project to apply for, I will do it. A lot of those are misses, if not most of them.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You have to get really used to facing that sort of rejection. But it's not a comment on if you're a good artist or not. Like, and I sort of lucked out with that too, because like I toured Canada at 26 on Canada Council money. My first full-length album got 4 stars in Downbeat.
Great.
There's
Awesome.
a very real chance I never do that again. And that has to be okay.
Yeah.
So, in my to circle us back to social media, in my Blue Sky bio or my intro thread, there's a whole thing about how I was like 6 in jazz years and I like could have been a good scholar if I tried harder. And I've heard some pretty scathing things. But I got 4 stars in Downbeat. I toured Canada. I've conducted internationally in Australia. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? It's all extra. And so when I say I went back to school because I wanted to, I really did want to. It's not for it's not like, there's a pay bump. It's not that great. I'm here because I want to be here.
Yeah.
And that applies as much to the Frost School of Music, studying with Maria Schneider, trying to get a coronation, as it does to Saturday, December 21st, I'm at Brentwood with some of my best local friends making music. Like the joy, the privilege of all of this is I get to do this because I want to.
Yeah.
That's the fun part.
That reminds me, like, there are two questions that I've been asked as a musician, and they're like kind of wildly opposite but also related. The first one, when I was preparing for the move to Toronto, I met up with Brad Turner, who was a close teacher of mine when I was up at CAP, and we just had a coffee, and I said, okay, like, what can I expect, yada, yada. So we talked about the differences in the music scenes, and we talked about where I should focus as a player and as a performer. And then he said, okay, what do you want?
Yeah.
And just like that, and it's like... And I can't remember the initial answer I got. It's like, no. It's like, at the end of the day, when you were like, at the end of your life and your career, like, what do you want to have done?
Yeah.
And that's such a big question. And we often think of it as like, what do I want to do this year? What do I want to do next year? And when you think of it in that scope, like over your career, it's like a lot of these things don't really matter. So, I had to think about it for a few minutes. And at the time, my response, and I think it's the same now, it's like, and I'm not going to diminish my abilities as a writer or as a player. I think I have a fair space in the Vancouver scene, the Canadian scene. But at the end of the day, like, in the grand scheme of things, I'm okay as an arranger. I'm okay as a trumpet player. I will never be one of the greats, and I'm fine with that. But... what I want to do is, with my music, I want to have at least one person say, I want to do that.
Right. Cool.
Like, and that's an easy metric. I have passed that metric. I've had people say, oh, that writing was great. I'd love to be able to write in that way, or that tune that you wrote, or the solo that you took. Like, every once in a while you hear that, and it's like, yes, I crossed that line.
Yeah.
So I need to figure out how I'm updating that question.
Right.
But, like, that was... a formative question that kind of changed my philosophy and approach to the music. It's like, and as Chelsea said, she got record 4 stars in downbeat. It's like, am I ever going to get to record a proper album, either with my levantet or as a trumpet player or whatever? I don't have control over that. Like, it costs a lot of money to do that, and I may never have the financial opportunity to do that. And going back to how we talked earlier, it's like, we can't control what other people... We can't control, or we can't measure our success by specifically relying on the opinions of other people.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, having something like that saying, I want my music to be appreciated in my lifetime, I think that's a fair and noble goal.
I will add, to bring this back to the Vancouver context specifically, Ross Taggart, just having someone who, like, in his time was so deeply appreciated after his passing.
Oh, yeah.
That was big for me. Because he was on faculty at a lot of the jazz camps I did in high school.
Sure.
And, like, kind of taught me a lot of things that I still haven't figured out about the saxophone, if that makes sense. Like, he had this list of players you should know, and I still go back to it because I'm like, I still haven't heard of half these guys. He gave me the list in grade 11.
Yeah.
And I'm still working my way through it.
Yeah.
But I think of that as, like, sometimes you don't get to see your impact and your payoff.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't care if I see it or not. I just kind of want to, I kind of want that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm an industry person. I want my peers to look at me and be like, that's cool. I want to do that. I'm writing my own big band records. I'm not going to have somebody else do that necessarily, but maybe I will have a meaningful impact on the people around me. And that's got to count for something.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I think it does. It always will come out to wanting to surpass some kind of goal, right? Like, you do something because you want to achieve like a goal that you've set for yourself. So it could just be, I want to do this because I've never done this before, and if I actually pull it off, I will have impressed myself.
That is how I have done so many things.
Yeah.
Here's a crazy idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Like, man, what if I actually did this?
So I don't think I've ever told the story. So here's a Vancouver jazz first.
Perfect.
I cold called a bunch of Australian jazz festivals in like 2016. Like a client I had toured Australia.
Yeah.
Here's 6 festivals you've never heard of. They've never heard of me.
Yeah.
I was just coming off. Maybe the Canadian tour was just coming up, or I was just coming off it or something. Cold called, got absolutely nothing in return.
Yeah.
2 years later, hey, you haven't talked to us before. We're from Perth. We want to partner with the Canadian Embassy and bring you over here for a week.
Whoa.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
What?
Similar cold call. That's how my Australia thing came up. And I played at the Perth International Jazz Festival.
Okay.
And the Sydney International Women's Jazz Festival with my friend Jenna Cave, whose name had come up in that initial round of pitches, but she's not a booker. She's just a really awesome musician from Sydney.
Yeah.
Who also has a really cool album out as of recently called Grief, Hope, and Love that I need to go back to. But this to say, you don't know where all those threads are going to go, because at the time I was like, oh, crazy idea. I could tour Australia. And then when the Perth people came back, it was a lot of tweaking of the proposal. At first it was, well, maybe I bring a vocalist in a rhythm section. Maybe I bring section leads.
Yeah.
And then it turned into, well, we only have enough money to bring me, and we can't bring you for like, and then the calendar had shrunk, so it was like I could only go for a week.
Yeah.
And like all of the details kind of sorted themselves out in the 6 months that it took us to do this process. But like and then when I was there, I met someone I had cold called.
Yeah.
And he was like, I know who you are. And I was like,
Oh.
I really? You
Yeah.
never answered my email. He's like, we didn't have the budget to bring you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't a bad thing. It was like, oh, we thought you were cool the first time. But first of all, no one
We
knows
thought
where-
you were cool.
we thought you were cool.
And now
we
I've
know.
met you.
Yeah.
But like, Wangaratta does not have the budget for traveling Canadian, even at the emerging artist before she's famous price. So I
Not
just,
yet. We're all waiting on Wingaratta to really.
I think the
Before
crazy
it shows
idea
the city.
thing. I know it's like it's that very like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or whatever, the like 6 impossible things before breakfast.
I'm not familiar.
Is that not Hitchhiker's Galaxy?
6
Okay.
impossible things before breakfast.
I thought it was. It's a reference from something. Anyways, just do the big scary thing. Come up with a plan that scares you. Come
Totally.
up with a plan that doesn't make any sense to anybody but you, but you're the only person who could do
Right.
it.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the other question. I'm going to post this to the crew here. The other question that I found really important, I'm going to use this to cycle back to the Christmas gig because it'll be a good time for that. I study off and on with Jill Townsend since I moved back from Toronto. Wonderful person.
The great composer.
Fantastic composer. And I'm really glad that her and I got to connect. Anyways, when we had... It may not have been our first writing lesson, but it was a second or third writing lesson. We were going through a chart, and she says, okay, this chart's really good. What in this chart is Thomas? So she's like, let's go through the score. What in here is your stamp? Like, what in here makes this unique to you, or something that you feel makes this chart unique to you?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's just like somewhere in all the charts, there's just like a little bit of sassiness musically.
Okay.
And that's why I pointed out in that chart. Like,
Yeah.
there's this line, there's this little triplety bit it's just like a little effect thrown in. Like,
Yeah.
that was something that I'm like, yeah, it's
Sassiness.
but
Great.
not like the whole charts. Just every once in a while, there's
Yeah.
just like this, and like a dad joke kind of thing.
Yeah,
just thrown
humor.
in there.
Humor
There's-
again. No, I think that's really cool. Like, you have like a way of like inserting humor into what you're writing as music, and I think that's really challenging. Like, I was serious when I meant that. Like, being able to make music funny is really challenging, and it's really impressive to me.
Yeah.
Because there are funny things that happen in music all the time, and like they're purely funny. It's not like some sort of meta commentary. It's not like irony or anything.
Yeah,
it's
it's-
like actually something that sounds like, and it's not like making like a fart noise with a trombone.
No.
It's like actual like
There's
cleverness,
that interjection.
cleverness in timing and in melodic contour and everything that that suggests like a true like aptitude for writing music. And so that makes a lot of sense that's like what you're going for.
Yeah. So I'll posit this question around the table. What makes Chris's guitar playing or Chris's composition Chris?
Oh man. Okay. I think a lot of guitar players like Pat Metheny talks about writing music on the piano. Like he doesn't really write music on the guitar. Because he's like it's actually a really funny clip of him just being like, yeah, I just write music on piano because piano is so much easier than guitar.
You press a button, make the sounds.
Yeah, it's just like you could play he says something that's like, as long as you figure out the fingering, like you could play a chord on the piano that would take you years to be able to play on the guitar. And it's just I just think that's so funny. I write like all of my guitars are very clearly written on or all of my songs are written on the guitar.
Yeah.
So like there's lots of like guitar-y things where like it will include like I'm in a stage right now where I'm like always including an open string in a lot of my chords.
Nice.
And so
that just gets a different ring to it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and like I totally like steal that sensibility from Peter Bernstein. Because he also just uses open strings a lot in his playing because it's a different texture and it's shinier and so like the use of open strings, the use of I've been studying a lot more classical guitar the last couple of years because I've been teaching classical guitar, so I'm using more fingerstyle stuff than I used to. So I think that kind of thing. I mean, that's a really good question, but I think, yeah, that sort of thing. I think I have like maybe a harmonic sensibility that shows up in my music. I'm going to try to feature my own compositions a lot more in the next year. That's sort of a goal for me.
Nice.
Is to book shows and like it be featuring my compositions instead of just playing standards. Not to disparage playing standards because I love playing standards, but I do want to explore like showcasing my compositional style a little bit more. So maybe I'll have a better answer for you next year when we do this podcast again.
Tough question.
Yeah.
Chelsea, let's
I'm really glad I went last, so I had all this time to think about it.
Yeah.
What
You
makes
can always
Chelsea's
count on me to ramble about myself. Don't worry.
What makes
You
Chelsea's
have a
music
podcast.
Chelsea?
I
Yeah.
don't understand.
Yeah.
No, what makes Chelsea's music Chelsea? I definitely have the sort of pop sensibility layered into everything.
Mhm.
That's big. I feel like I'm currently working on a thing for studio orchestra, actually, and I know the thing in my studio orchestra charts is an overuse of mallet percussion, like pitched percussion. I'm a glockenspiel addict, and it really comes through.
There were a lot of bell chimes in the thing you showed me this morning.
Yeah, that's true. I was showing you a thing this morning, and it had both tubular bells and glockenspiel. There's also a marimba part in there that's a little less loud. So, like, pitched percussion is like my orchestral crutch for sure.
Sounds cool.
In the big band and in more of the stuff that I do that's like for myself, there's definitely a way of playing with meter. Because one of my teachers showed me that you don't need to put an accelerando or a retardando if you can just put it in the meter itself. And that sort of broke my brain. And so now I have random 6/4 bars littered in all my charts.
Yeah.
And, I'm not like, I don't do crazy polyrhythmic things. That's like not my thing, but I love a good groove. I think
I just saw a Sun Gazer the other day.
Oh, fun.
Talk about polyrhythms.
I love listening to that stuff. I could never do it.
It looks challenging.
Yeah.
It's
But I love people who can get into music like that.
totally,
like,
yeah, and they play it in a really like,
it feels really good.
I do appreciate them for being like presenting that kind of music in a way that's like pretty approachable. And like Adam Neely, the leader of that group, the YouTuber, although he doesn't make as many YouTube videos anymore, but he's been on tour with this band. So
yeah,
he's kind of like a Neil deGrasse Tyson of music theory. he's like a music theory communicator. Like he's like Bill Nye the Science Guy or something. And like and he does a little bit of that shtick in the show where he's like sort of explaining like this song is in this meter and like we do this over it and it's like this style or here's like a clapping pattern that you can do over 5/4 or something.
Yeah.
And that's cool, but also like after a while, like I was just thinking like, I hope they don't do this for every song. And they didn't. They only did it for the first couple songs, and then the rest of them, you know, they left a little to the imagination, you know.
Good.
So, which is good, I think. You know, like
I think if you have to
subtext.
like explain it off the top,
Yeah.
that's a little.
Well, that's the shtick, though.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people come to the show specifically for that kind of thing.
Okay.
And I think they get that, and they're like playing into that. I think maybe, you know, like in a couple of years they won't have to do that anymore. Like people will just sort of get it, but it is part of like the show.
So back on it. Let's go.
Sorry, I
let's talk.
interrupted you.
Let's talk like Christmas particular. In the Christmas charts, what is Chelsea?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Like just pick a moment.
It's like, I think for me, it's pure nostalgia. It's like, because I'm thinking of like Last Christmas, because that's probably the one that really has my stamp on it of all the charts that we've done. Some of them are a little more like chalky, commercial, whatever. But Last Christmas is like, no, let's dig into the lyric is like kind of sad.
Oh, it is sad. It's a pretty
not
good
kinda
song.
sad.
The arrangement becomes this sort of like moody, brooding thing, but we know it as this like super upbeat pop tune. And so for me, that was the one where like I go into a lot of arrangements and I'm like, do I have the whatever to reinvent this whole thing and like really deconstruct it, take it apart?
Yeah.
Or am I trying to do something that fits in the confines of what the tune originally was?
Yeah.
And in tunes like All I Want for Christmas or I'll Be Home for Christmas, it's very much that idea of staying inside. Like I'll Be Home for Christmas is a wartime song, so we stick with the ballad and we have these big sweeping moments. Or All I Want for Christmas is like 90s pop fun time, and so it becomes a saxophone feature because you know, you can do that, and I have really good saxophone players who get to ham it up. But Last Christmas is the one where I was like, no, we can take this apart. There's a really cool instrumental riff. This has to go into a different key. We're going to let the tenor players brood.
Yeah.
Like there's all of these very deliberate choices to take it away from what the original was. And so the part that I think grabs the audience, at least would be my guess, is that contrast.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows the original.
Oh yeah.
It's the holidays. We all know
I think
know these tunes.
I think that's probably the joy of like doing these Christmas songs, is that they're so deeply burrowed into everyone's psyche that if you play around with them, that's a lot of fun, right? Like, see, like, and people will be like people will really enjoy like a new take on something that they're so familiar with.
We want that for you.
Yeah.
We know you know these tunes.
Yeah.
It's not about like, we're not.
We'll preface, if you show up at this concert expecting Christmas tunes exactly how you know them on the radio,
Don't.
sorry. The music is great, but we definitely
It's still
have
like
our
a
own
fun
spins.
show. Like
Yeah.
it's not like like you're not like completely deconstructing them and like making things avant-garde. You're just like it's just a new take, or like maybe like an enhancement of like the feeling of the
We
of the
are
tune,
composer arrangers at heart.
Yeah.
We are going to not just do a straight up cover. It's going to be some new take on it.
I think my new one this year is probably the most straight up, but like there's still moments in there. There's still a little like, you know,
Well,
only I could approach a big band shout with this particular level of Vegas showgirl.
cool. Yeah, there you
your chart for the most wonderful time of the year is pretty true to the famous versions.
It is, that's also pretty inside, but we're not doing that this year.
Not doing that this year. I'm doing a version of Little Drummer Boy, which is, if we go back to the stinker question, that might be number 2 on my stinker list. Number 1 is Marshmallow World. I didn't get a chance to answer that
Wow. So much shade for such a I'm with you on Little Drummer Boy, but
Little Drummer Boy
World
is
fun.
like down at the bottom.
That's
I
like
hate
Steph's
Marshmallow World.
favorite one.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to disappoint
World
them.
throughout the year.
Oh, sorry, Steph. Sorry, Steph. But it's a it's a drum showcase. Like I'm
Yeah.
going that route, the traditional route.
Yeah,
but it goes through enough like key changes to make these eyes feel jealous. These eyes are crying.
Yeah.
These eyes.
Thomas will be singing at the show.
I will be singing at the
Yeah.
show. Let's talk about your band a bit more, Chelsea.
Thomas is in the band. He's singing.
Yeah,
I'm in
Tom's
band.
band. He's singing.
This is the one gig a year where I advertise myself as a vocalist.
Yeah.
And we keep looping back on these things, but like getting into the multiple musical identities. Like I'm a trumpet player first and a composer 2nd, and every once in a while I do singing, and every time I do sing, people are like, why don't you do gigs as a singer? And it's like, because that's
So much
part
work.
of my musical identity, but it's also like, I don't know, that's a whole other conversation. We're pretty in the weeds in this podcast.
You do
at
have
this
a
point.
degree.
I think I am the only person to do 2 grad recitals at CAP and not have failed the first one.
Right.
My first one was as a vocalist. I did a big band tribute to Joe Williams.
Yes, I remember.
That was a lot of fun. And then I did one later on as a victory lap as a trumpet player.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways,
Wait, which one was That Is a Good Deal?
that's the
vocalist
song
one.
called Luella. That is.
Yeah.
It's not Joe Williams with the bassy band. It's Joe Williams with. It was a little more obscure, like 1920s group.
Right.
But yes, I am singing on
Well,
this gig.
she's not a fortune teller.
Teller. Yeah.
Can't believe I still remember that.
That is a good deal.
That was like 15 years ago? No.
This predates,
no, that
this
was about
actually
15 years
predates
ago.
our friendship.
No, that wouldn't have been 15 years. No. I think, no, it's only 2024. It's not 23
I did it in
yet.
2012, so 12 years ago. 12 and a half.
Fun fact: my band has been around since 2012.
Whoa.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, so I am the featured vocalist with the Chelsea McBride, the Vancouver edition of the Socialist Night School.
Woohoo! Exactly.
Right, that is the name of your big band. Is the
Chelsea
Socialist-
McBride's Socialist Night School.
Where'd
Find
that
us
name
on
come
streaming. My intro to politics teacher.
Okay.
Who we had a music kid study group. I love telling a story. We had a music kid study group that
cute.
met up before the test on left wing ideologies back when that was a more clear cut thing.
Yeah.
And we show up as he's
It's not a
handing
political
the,
podcast.
as he's handing the test back, and he goes, "Man, I don't know if you all went to Socialist Night School or something." My bass trombonist slams, big dude, right? So like slams
Siebes?
both
Yeah,
Siebes,
Siebes, okay.
yeah, good old Nicholas Sieber, slams both hands on the desk, like full volume, middle of class, turns to me sitting in the row behind, and is like, "That's the name of the band."
Yeah.
I'm mortified, obviously, right? And I think I spent about 10 days in denial.
8:26 in the morning.
I think it was like 2:30 in the afternoon,
Okay.
but your point is taken.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? It was like
For a university undergrad student, that's 6:30 in the morning.
that's
Yeah.
6:30 in the morning, and that's so embarrassing.
Yeah, bass trombonist has the biggest lungs in the room usually.
Yeah. So you know, I'm like trying to crawl under the desk at this point. And I spent about 10 days in denial before I was like, "No, he's right. That's the name of the band."
That is a good name.
It's tough though, because like, you know, it was a different political climate then. And so now I'm like, yeah, it's still the Socialist Night School, like everywhere in my
Yeah.
heart. In my heart of hearts, it will always be the Socialist Night School.
Yeah.
How do you do that in 2024 or 5?
I think you just have to go full
You don't do it
Maoist
in
third
Florida.
worldist.
You don't
night
do it in
school.
Florida, that's for sure.
Maoist third worldist night school. That's you just got to keep pushing it left. Sorry.
It's okay. If I like, I don't know. I've never. It's funny that we've touched on politics because it's almost impossible not to do that as someone who lives in the States. But like,
Once you get me going.
but like, I don't think about that as an essential part of my identity. Like, I'm
No.
a musician and an artist and a family person and a
story
person
makes
in the
it.
world.
The story just explains it.
I like learning things. I like
Yeah.
knowing about things. I like study group.
That's all.
And it
that's all.
stuck.
Yeah, it's less the socialist part, more the night school part of it. Yeah. Yeah. But I think, but that is really like but also like that does kind of like explain like jazz musicians most of the time. Like you go to like a jam session and it's just like, what is this? Some sort of socialist night school? And it's like, yeah, it may as well be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like unofficially.
Unofficially.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not a monolith, that's for sure. But
Right. Yeah.
there's a lot of shared common ground philosophically. Not even politically,
Yeah.
just philosophically.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. That's all it needs to come down to when you're playing music together most of the time. Well, I can't wait to play with you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm so excited for the show.
How do you buy tickets to this show?
Easiest way will be cash at the door.
Okay.
It's at Brentwood Presbyterian, 1600 Delta Avenue in Burnaby.
Yep.
Great venue. Really
love it
appreciate
there.
Oh, yeah.
we love it there. Brian's a great minister
many
to
a
work
big
with.
band there.
Yeah, many a big band, very friendly to the Canadian large ensemble
Yeah.
scene. Or, well, yeah, I'll say Canadian, Vancouver in particular.
Yeah.
Vancouver in particular.
Vancouver
Yeah.
large ensemble scene. Cash at the door is totally fine. It's a small capacity venue. I think 80 or 90 folk.
Yep.
If you want to guarantee, we are selling tickets on 3 Common.
Okay.
There's a specialty link that I made. I believe it is.
Is there a
Hold
link
on.
in a bio?
There is a link
On a
on the
page?
Facebook
There's
events.
a Facebook event. I believe there's a link in my Instagram bio.
Okay, great.
One
Thomas
second,
is
I'm just
not
digging
on
it up here.
Instagram.
No, I only have Facebook because I am a boomer at heart.
Yeah.
Okay, it is 3 is in the digit 3 Common COMMON.com
Great.
/ Chelsea Thomas Xmas.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, come on down to that show. Are you encouraging singing along?
You know what? I
That
haven't
would be
thought
very
about
difficult.
Yeah,
It would be hard.
Yeah, I guess if
It's-
there's
yeah.
like bars of 6/8 in the middle.
Yeah.
it. Yeah, this Christmas in particular.
And
is a
I
bit
am the
full.
vocalist, not the audience. It is me.
Right.
But bring your festive cheer.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
It's the most wonderful time of the
The
year.
the
Bring
dress
a
codes-
thermos of mulled wine.
Bring cash because they provide socks or extra cash. They provide socks and underwear to people on the downtown east side.
Nice.
Really great outreach work that they do there.
I believe the fundraiser for that is actually just a couple hours before our show.
Oh.
Is it?
If I'm not mistaken, check the gig list.
Oh, yeah.
But Noah Franch-Nolan has a little set going on.
Oh, okay, cool.
At Brentwood at 3:30. So
nice.
if you want to just spend the day listening to good music at Brentwood and also raise some money for a
Yeah.
good cause and also support some excellent local musicians,
Yeah.
come on out.
Whoa. Yeah, I didn't realize Noah was also playing. Great.
Yep. So yeah, Saturday, December 21st, 2024.
Doors
Brentwood
at 6:30.
Presbyterian.
6:30.
Doors at 6:30. Brentwood Presbyterian, 1600 Delta Avenue. You can buy tickets online at 3common.com / Chelsea and Thomas Xmas or cash at doors fine.
Man, you're good at this.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, and you can always check the gig list. Yeah, thanks for meeting with me, guys. This was really fun.
Yeah, thank you for
And,
having us.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again to Thomas and Chelsea, and of course Razor and Snips for joining me on that one. If you liked the vibe of that episode, you're going to love the Big Band Show, so come out on Saturday. Like I said, this is our last episode of 2024. I have had a blast hosting the podcast since August, and I can't wait to get going with 2025. Thank you all so much for tuning in every week and for the great feedback. It means a lot. If you're not subscribed to the paid tier on rhythmchanges.ca, go subscribe so you can watch Will's year-end recap video, available only to paid subscribers. It's an awesome, if frank, look back at the year for Rhythm Changes, and an exciting look ahead as well. Happy holidays. Thanks again for subscribing, for listening. Happy New Year. See you in January.